All right, I am excited, although I'm in Los Angeles now where it's warm, and Anna and John, you're in Chicago, so welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
So nice to be here with you.
Well, I really appreciate you both participating, and this should be a great roundtable video panel where we're talking about what I consider the most important asset out there, and that's talent. And I think a good way to start, if we can, is starting with you, Anna. Ladies first, of course. If you could introduce yourself and tell our audience who you are, what you do.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm Anna Dutra. I'm the president and CEO of the Executives Club of Chicago and have been in that role for just about 6 months. Prior to that, I have spent over 25 years as a consultant and leading businesses in consulting, technology, and the products industry, products as they relate to strategy execution, organization, and talent management and leadership development. I'm originally born and raised in Brazil. I came to live in the U.S. about 23 years ago and have worked in more than 25 countries throughout my career.
You want to say a special hello in Portuguese?
Claro, como vai? Tudo bem? É um prazer estar aqui.
Muy bien. Well, John, can you follow that with your introduction?
I can't speak Portuguese. I wish I could give this to you in Portuguese, but I'm John Challenger. I'm CEO of Challenger Gray and Christmas, and we're a global outplacement firm with offices around the U.S. and the world. And what we do is we help companies when they go through either changes in their senior leadership. We help those people find new jobs that leave the company, or they go through restructurings and downsizings.
One thing I do know is the name Challenger seems to get quoted more than anybody I've ever seen.
That's a nice after effect that comes from working in an area where people really have great concerns. Everybody has lost their job or worries that they might. They have friends and family who have. So we do statistics on the people who've left and the successes that they have in finding jobs. So the media, because they write so many stories about that, have come to use that data, rely on that data.
Well, I certainly admire that. You each come from unique backgrounds, different perspectives, as we've seen just in this initial conversation. Assisting, well, I guess, the common client management of companies. Anna, let me go back to you. How and why do you do what you do?
How and why? Well, let me start with the why. I've spent most of my career in my personal practice working with boards and CXOs on what I call strategy execution through organization and talent. So that includes strategic alignment, succession planning, board effectiveness, leadership assessment, and onboarding and leadership development programs. How I do it? I'm a firm believer that consultants should not consult for, they should consult with. So I do it primarily in partnership with my clients, bringing advisory expertise, but involving them every step along the way.
No, that's awesome. And John, same for you. How and why do you do what you do? And you have, your family. Your father has been in this business. You lead the company now. What's your perspective on that? What's your story?
Well, talent certainly is just crucial to what makes the most successful companies stand out from those that they compete with. We're moving into a time right now with unemployment now at 5.7%, where talent wars are starting to emerge, especially for the top workers, the companies that every company depends on to drive their businesses. More and more companies now are doing engagement surveys to look at how their people are reacting to the environment. More companies are doing programs for their high potentials to keep them there. More people are looking at leaving now, so they're being recruited by others. So the environment right now is one where executives need to focus on who their top talent are and how to keep and retain them.
Did you grow up wanting to be an outplacement expert?
I did. Well, I just came to the business. I was a good, obedient, oldest son. So I was working in the business when I was 10 and also doing lots of jobs. So I don't know if I quite did that. When I graduated from school, I went out and worked for a while. And then he said at a certain point, "You better come now. I need you." So I listened and moved back from Atlanta, where I was, in Washington, D.C. So I don't know if I ever thought I was always going to do it, but it's such good work because what you do is you see people go through changes in their life and you make a real impact on them.
Yeah, well, Anna, I didn't grow up saying I wanted to be a headhunter. Were you turning things around even when you were a kid that you decided, I can do this for business too?
No, I actually would say that for me it was quite the opposite. I throughout my career, so by background, I was a professor of economics and an attorney. So practiced law for a couple of years, said this is not it. IBM hired me in sales first, so managing accounts and selling. And I think that the advisory career started to shape up for me when I realized that more than selling, I actually liked to advise clients at that point in technology strategies. So I got my MBA and moved from there to more traditional management consulting and strategy. At some point got frustrated with the fact that it was great analysis and great binders that never got implemented, then moved into the transformational consulting, then realized that it was great, we transformed the businesses, but for some reason, everything went back to what it was before, and it was not creating the right culture and having the right leaders in place. And that's when I really found my passion, which was around leadership and development and talent management. So for me, it was an evolution, and I tried so many different things before I narrowed down on what I ended up doing over the last few years.
Which is great foundation, if you will, for your being able to be successful in how you've been. Hey, John, did you notice the Wall Street Journal changed their section that they called Marketplace to Business and Tech? And I'll ask you this too, Anna. Start with John. So is talent still the number one asset, or are they focusing on tech? John?
Well, certainly tech has infused itself into every area of the company. Every individual needs to be up to date, utilizing tech, involving it in what they do. So talent's very important, most important, but without tech, no one's going to be successful. So I think they're just reflecting that we've moved from maybe the manufacturing age into the service economy and the tech era, the information age. So they're keeping up with the times.
Feel the same way, Anna?
I do, and I think that what's happening, Mark and John, is that technology is manifesting itself as a big accelerator of talent development. So just giving a couple of examples, think about e-learning and how much is done virtually in terms of leadership development, talent development. Then think about this new generation who uses social media and technology so intensely, and that is part of communicating, connecting with them, engaging them in the marketplace. So I think that technology and talent are intertwined in so many different ways in order to form a culture, to engage and connect with people, and to, quite frankly, develop and retain
Which
employees.
is a great segue into my next question. But by the way, do you know there's a Generation Z now? Gen Z? Do you know what that is?
Oh yeah, we John and I not with each other, but we have a couple of them in our homes.
I was talking to.
I'm
sorry. Go ahead.
Now, we moved to there now 5 generations. We now have 5 generations in the workplace, and some of those Zers are going to make it.
Exactly. I was going to mention, I was speaking to a sports executive of an NHL team a little bit ago, and he talked to me about, and I love comparing sports and business, about how they always strive to win the championship every year. But they know that's going to be tough. But one thing they do require is they have winning seasons every year. And he talked about culture to do that. He talked about what Anna was referring to recently about what we call as a circle: talent acquisition, talent development, and as a result, talent retention. What's your insights on this? Let's start with Anna on this. What's your insights on this as it pertains to a business and an organization about having winning, or profitable seasons consistently?
Well, just think about how many books and movies we have that actually use sports stories and coaches' stories and analogies as a parallel to leadership, right? And how many times we actually refer to sports coaches and talk about leaders. I don't know. I don't know what you mean by having to have consecutive winning seasons, but I do make a parallel, though, between pushing and pushing and pushing your team to win in the short term at the expense of the long term. And that's where I think that the good coaches will learn how to balance short and long term. We will teach their players how to balance individual talent and teamwork, and that's where I see the analogy with individual and team performance, as well as short-term business management and long-term business management on the business environment.
Yeah, no, that was great.
Did that answer your question?
Before John answers his, I'm going to play with that point a little bit. John, obviously you're an outplacement. What Anna's saying, it happens a lot in sports, is the coach is told if you don't win, you're fired, so he's forced to think short-term. Business is shareholder value. He's forced to think short term. You see that in outplacement. How do they have what I call consecutive winning seasons or successful seasons if they're not letting management think long term?
Well, certainly that is one of the real risks of the focus we have on short-term earnings and the stock price. So we do see the effect of that. Companies expecting always to have winning seasons, so the days of long-term CEOs and executive teams they seem to be gone, and so you do get this kind of changing out of the top management, almost like baseball managers are turned out. That means shifts in strategy, new directions. It just doesn't allow companies to weather the natural cycles that occur
so,
in
Anna,
every
what's
business.
your experience then in what successful leaders are doing right in turnarounds or even strategic growth, knowing that we always have the short and long term to think about, but can they really be successful leaders in turning a company around or growing them with that pressure?
Yeah, I think that actually John and I were this morning in a breakfast of the Executives Club where Irene Rosenfeld, the chairman and CEO of formerly Kraft and now Mondelez, talked quite a bit about that. And she talked about a couple of things. Number one is emphasis on execution and putting the right people in the right place. Great leaders know that they are not going to be able to lead throughout the organization. They have to prepare and enable the next layers of leaders so that they can communicate to the troops. The other thing, quite frankly, about that is that there are so many studies done on the fact that people deliver or over-deliver and stay not based necessarily on the top of the house, but in the faith and the inspiration that they have driven by their immediate supervisors. So that's number one. Number two, well, we'll go back to managing short and long term, because the truth is that if you don't deliver in the short term, there will be no long term for you. Given the pressure put by financial analysts, markets, activists, investors, and all that. But on the